Today we are going to take a deeper dive into who Pete Golding is, and all that's coming up after the bumper.
What do you mean you don't subscribe to my son's YouTube channel?
Mama, no!
Just snap the damn ball, RJ.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always OU related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. And today we're going to take a deeper dive into who Pete Golding is. But first, I want to let you know that YouTube has given some YouTubers a t-shirt store. And you know how much I love t-shirts, and I make a bunch of my own. And you can find ones like the one I'm wearing right now, which says, "It's not personal, I'm just here for Baker Cleveland." And you can find all kinds of other shirts at that store. Also, if you haven't bought my book, Let It Bang, I would appreciate it if you did it. So today we're going to get into a deeper dive of who Pete Golding is. But first, I want to say that this weekend is shaping up to be kind of my nightmare. Why would it be my nightmare? Because I can see this going a lot of ways, but I see it as Oklahoma winning and everybody else winning. And then Oklahoma going to the Big 12 title game and beating a Texas team and still not making it into the college football playoff. But the way that it would really turn the knife is that Alabama beats Auburn and then Alabama loses to Georgia, which makes Clemson number 1. You got to believe Georgia will go to number 2. Alabama will be 3. And then Notre Dame doesn't get beaten. They stay undefeated. I can also see Ohio State beating Michigan because the last time that Michigan won in Columbus, y'all were prepping for Y2K to take down your AOL homepage. They haven't won in Columbus since 2000. And Jimmy Khakis, he ain't beat Urban Meyer. So while Michigan fans are acting all tough, yo man, Ohio State is living in your head and the rent is cheaper than a vacant trailer park in Dayton. Like, I just don't see how you can walk into the shoe and expect to just get a W because Michigan happens to be better this year than it has been in years past. It's still Ohio State's rivalry to this point. And while Michigan can run the football and play defense, if Ohio State manages to get up by 2 scores, I don't know that Michigan has the offensive firepower to make up the ground because Ohio State's just going to keep their foot on the gas because Ohio State is built a lot like Oklahoma. Pretty good offense, really bad defense, where Oklahoma has a superpower offense and an even worse defense. But I could see Ohio State beating Michigan and then getting into the Big Ten championship and beating Northwestern, and you're talking about perhaps a 5-6 Oklahoma all over again, for which you get a different Sugar Bowl. But goodness me, man, you need somebody to lose here to avoid the nightmare of Oklahoma having one loss and staying out of the college football playoff. But I also see the argument, yo man, if you want to make the college football playoff, do not lose in your power conference. That will assure you entry. That's why we call them power conferences, because not everybody is going through there undefeated. See UCF. Speaking of UCF, they don't schedule anybody in the years coming. They got Louisville, Georgia Tech, Stanford, and that's about it as far as power conference 5 teams that they're playing that are worth anything. So for Danny White and UCF to keep yelling about how all they do is win, you don't play anybody, and you're scared of everybody but some power conference teams that nobody's scared of. Go schedule Notre Dame. Go schedule Oklahoma. Go schedule Alabama. Go schedule Clemson. Go schedule Florida. Go schedule Georgia. Schedule somebody that has some respect and some prestige, because a win against Florida Atlantic ain't going to get you into the college football playoff. A win against Louisville ain't going to get you into the college football playoff. So you can keep yelling about it until you schedule somebody. And at Oklahoma, we schedule folks. So we're not really going to hear your argument about how you go undefeated when all we do is play one of the toughest non-con schedules of all the entire FBS. Now, let's get into a deeper dive of Alabama co-defense coordinator Pete Golding. Now, I need to make this caveat clear. Myself and Brandon Drumm have sources that hear Pete Golding's name a lot, but he's not hired for the job. They're still going to vet defensive coordinators. Ruffin McNeil is still in it. So we're talking about a job for which there are a bunch of candidates. But yes, I do hear his name, and that's one of the reasons why I thought I would give more background to folks who want to know more about who Pete Golding is. And if he's not the defensive coordinator at Oklahoma, he's going to be the defensive coordinator at a power conference team. And I'll get into that in a little bit because he's that good. Now, one of the things that Oklahoma fans will like about Pete Golding is the last time that he was the direct defensive coordinator. That means the guy calling the plays. They played in a 4-2-5 alignment at UTSA, and they were very aggressive in the play calls. However, Golding does have experience with an odd front too, a 3-4 and a 3-3-5 look. Oklahoma does both of those things depending on down and distance and who's calling the plays. So it's not as if he'd be unfamiliar with the kind of personnel and the kind of scheme that has been run at Oklahoma in years past. And I, for one, am a huge proponent of the 4-2-5. I love what Gary Patterson's done with it. And when Oklahoma has used it, I thought it was their best look, particularly because you're very, very strong at linebacker, unlike in years past. Kenneth Murray Jr. and perhaps a Caleb Keller or even Levi Draper backing up a Deshaun White. You'll get Nick Benito coming on. You'll get Brian Asamoah coming on. Jonathan Perkins figures to sign with the class. It'd be okay. The other thing to take away from his time at UTSA is that primarily when he was coaching positions, he's coached defensive backs. And we all know that that is a glaring weakness for Oklahoma. Seems that they're undersized or they're not fast enough or whatever the excuse might be. But you could do with help at the defensive back position. Now, I don't know that that's something that he would take on. I'm just saying that that's what he did at UTSA. So it wouldn't be like he doesn't know how to teach the fundamentals of playing in the secondary to go along with an outstanding scheme and outstanding play caller. Also, this is a guy who knows how to recruit, and I think that speaks volumes in him being hired on by Alabama as the co-defensive coordinator and inside linebackers coach, because Nick Saban puts a strong emphasis on the ability to close on recruits, to not just get them committed, but to get them signed. And I know at Alabama, it feels like sometimes you just throw out an offer and you go get a kid, but that's not always true. Alabama's been in a lot of battles for a lot of guys, from Georgia to Florida to Oklahoma to Auburn. They're used to having to beat out other teams who can give playing time, where they have to sell the ability to get to the NFL in a few years. Pete Golding can do that. But one of the things that I like most about Pete Golding is that he is a relatively young coach. This guy is 34 years old, which makes him just a year younger than Lincoln Riley. He's also had to earn it every step of the way. He played defensive back at Delta State, where he was all Gulf South Conference. And 6 years after graduating from there, he led them to the 2010 NCAA Division II National Championship game as their defensive coordinator. But even before that, he was the defensive coordinator at Tusculum. Now, go find Tusculum on a map. I'll bet a lot of you haven't even heard of Tusculum. But when he took over in 2007, they immediately became a group of ball hawks at Tusculum. 14 interceptions in a season. And they led the conference in sacks and turnovers. Yes, I know it's Tusculum, but you get the point. Where this guy has gone, the defenses have been turned around. In his coaching career, he's had 6 All-Americans and coached the 2012 FCS Defensive Player of the Year. He has spent quite a lot of time in the South and almost exclusively in the South, beginning at Delta State, going to Tusculum, coming back to Delta State, moving to Southeastern Louisiana where he was defensive coordinator, then on to Southern Miss where he coached defensive backs, and then defensive coordinator at UTSA where he really started to make a name for himself. At UTSA, they set school records. Now, I know that UTSA is a very, very young football program, but 934 tackles, 77 for a loss, and 27 sacks in a season, that'll get it done at any level. His most decorated player is Marcus Davenport, who went in the first round to the New Orleans Saints, where he plays with his hand on the ground. He came onto Alabama's staff last December, and from all accounts, he has done a bang-up job there. And the other part about this is that it seems like if Pete Golding were getting the job, and I'm not saying that he is, he's in good position right now to walk into a room with a national championship ring on his finger, commanding everybody's respect and everybody's attention, because that's something that Oklahoma hasn't done in 18 years. So obviously there's a lot to like about Pete Golding, and for good reason. If Lincoln Riley decided that this was his guy, if Lincoln Riley could get this guy to come onto his staff, he could probably do some great things here. And I think that's the thing that most fans are excited about and why most folks are really high on him. Even more so than a guy like Alex Grinch at Ohio State, who's a Mount Union guy, and I like Mount Union guys. Mount Union guys are also Matt Campbell at Iowa State and Jason Kendall at Toledo. And he proved that he could be paired with an air raid coach and coach defense. You remember that Alex Grinch was Mike Leach's defensive coordinator before he moved on to Ohio State to be the co-defensive coordinator there, and also coach the secondary. So those are 2 up-and-coming guys for which we're hearing a lot of talk, and for good reason. But I thought that this would be good to give folks some background on Pete Golding. I'm glad that we've accomplished that. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.